This is Arun PT from Pathways Academy discussing 2023 GS Mains Paper 4. Here we go. In section A, the first question talks about how moral integrity and professional efficiency is important in the context of corporate governance. So always we have had one or two questions on corporate governance every year. So this year is not an exception. As usual, UPSC always asks us to come up with examples. So you need to just define these concepts and how it's important in the context of corporate world. Today, in the context of many accusations flying thick and fast against corporate misgovernance, I think this question becomes very important. This is not very difficult at all. You can just define the concepts and come up with actual examples from the corporate world. Then we have a question on international aid specifically. I think it's been some time, or maybe the first time they're asking a question on international aid directly. So the ethics related to international aid, again, support your answer with suitable examples. So what matters is giving the right examples. The concept per se is not difficult to define or discuss. You should be able to come up with specific examples on how the international aid have gone wrong. Not serving the actual purpose it was supposed to. That you should be able to highlight with the examples. The next question is on corruption. It's a very general question. Corruption is basically the manifestation of the failure of core values in the society. So basically, we could see the corruption as a kind of breach of trust, be it a corporate context or a government context. So I think you need to go back to the basic values of trust, honesty, integrity, and how these kind of things can be protected and thereby indirectly reducing corruption in the society. Then we have a question asking you to differentiate two terms, coercion and undue influence. So it's obvious coercion refers to a very explicit force being used, and undue influence refers to not exactly use of force, but somebody who doesn't have the authority or power, but able to manipulate using their other resources. So you need to again come up with examples. So you could see the continuous line of connection that we need to come up with examples wherever required. Then moving on, there are quotes as usual. We have, I think, 3 quotes. The first one is by Mahatma Gandhi, which talks about the act of kindness. Even if it's simple, it's more important or more powerful than 1,000 heads bowing in prayer. So basically, action, karma yoga is more important than just wishes or prayers. And so this kind of approach of giving emphasis about the simple acts of kindness, that is what it talks about. As always with quotes, you need to place it in the contemporary context. You need to try to understand in what context or what intention Mahatma Gandhi would have had while coming up with these things. If you are able to connect it to historical events, that will be good. Then we have the second quote by Nehru, which is all about women empowerment. So if you have to awaken the society, the people, then you have to awaken the women in the society. That's what it talks about. Again, a straightforward kind of quote. You need to just enhance it with examples and place it at the contemporary context too. Then we have the third quote by Swami Vivekananda. Basically, this is the essence of Eastern thought, the idea of karma, what goes around comes around. So hatred or love, both, if you express it towards others, it finally gets back to you. I think this becomes very important in today's conflict-ridden world, the society riddled by a lot of hatred and animosity. Moving on, the next question, the fourth question, talks about emotional intelligence. The very idea for the birth of concept of emotional intelligence was the limitations of the traditional concept of intelligence quotient. So to be successful, just intellectual ability is not enough. That's a very basic idea behind the emotional intelligence concept. So they want you to give reasons to support your answer why the EQ or emotional intelligence is more important. So that's where your focus has to be. Then we have another question, sub-question of question 4. Differentiate moral intuition from moral reasoning with suitable examples. So basically, intuition and reasoning are the two sides of our thinking. One is below conscious, what you normally refer to as gut feeling. The other one is more deliberate, a planned, reflective thinking. I think both are important. Only thing, sometimes you feel it's not right. That is a kind of moral intuition. Sometimes you could list out the reasons why something is right or wrong. That comes from the moral reasoning. Moving on, question 5A, we have is conscience a more reliable guide when compared to laws, rules, and regulations when it comes to ethical decision making? Such kind of questions, you cannot have a fixed answer saying that this is better or that is better. Probably, conscience is very relevant for that individual who is going to take the decision, ethical decision. Definitely that going to be a very important guide, but it has to be placed in the context. It has to be contrasted or compared with the rules and regulations. If you have to go against the law or rules, and because your conscience says it, only when both sides are there, you'll be able to take a clear ethical decision. So it's more about decision making and the role played by conscience vis-a-vis the importance of rules and laws and regulations. Then question 5B, we have the emphasis on the concept of probity. So basically, probity is a sustained integrity, or a larger value that integrates honesty and integrity in a very consistent manner over a period of time, and what's expected of a person holding a public office. So it's very important, obviously, for effective governance and socio-emotional economic development. So that's the next question. Question 6. Question 6A, it's asking you to list out the major teachings of Guru Nanak. As you prepare for general studies, Sikhism is a very important part of, even historically, as part of history. So Sikhism basic teachings like Guru Nanak's teachings like being courageous and defending the truth, being humble, understanding the, all gods are same. It's one, the concept of Advaita, and how it's important to share the blessings that you have, and how important to help others. It is these kind of core concepts. So if you are able to list out the sources or the exact words used in Sikhism, that would be more effective. And they've asked you to emphasize its relevance in the contemporary world. I think his Guru Nanak's teachings are even more important in today's contemporary world. So you should be able to come up with a few examples to illustrate the importance of such values in contemporary world. Moving on, 6B, we have the concept of social capital and how it's connected or how it can enhance good governance. Social capital is something, irreplaceable quality, the quality of trust and bonding between members of the society. Today, you could see there is a fracture across the globe in the social capital. And if people are not able to, people are getting ghettoized and not able to trust each other, then it's not going to be good for the society and the nation. So it's definitely going to affect governance. It's going to drain the government, in unnecessary things like trying to deal with riots and infighting and things like that. So that's the question on social capital and good governance. Moving on to section B. Section B, I'm not going to read out the entire text because it's going to take a lot of time, but you could check the questions on the net. I'll just give you the crux of the matter and move on. So the first question talks about a classical ethical dilemma. It's a kind of, you are working in a bank, and there's a colleague who needs money urgently to save another person. It's a life and death situation. You couldn't help, but later on you come to know that this person has got the fund and got the surgery done. Later you come to know that the manager has allowed some money to be taken out of a dormant account, which is against the law, and she has started repaying it. So I think this is a very classical case of ethical dilemma. So basically the idea is how would you react on the situation, knowing that colleague of yours, a close colleague of yours, and also the manager has kind of colluded in an unethical act, even though morally might be justified because it's a life and death situation. It's just a dormant account. The person is paying back also. But there are certain laws which has been broken here. So how would you react to it? Evaluate the behavior of the bank manager and what are the ethical issues involved. So I don't think it's a very tough question. It's very clear. And of course, how would you react? Since you hold a position in the bank and the ideal situation should be you need to report it. Of course, there is no other way because you are being a witness to a clearly illegal act. So that's the first question. Moving on to the next question, we have a kind of situation where there is a landslide, and as a district magistrate, you are going with your team, and there is a particular case where a woman is pregnant and she has to be shifted. She is losing blood, so there is a need for immediate blood transfusion. So the dilemma here is a kind of a dilemma that medical professionals come across. What normally the code of ethics for the doctor says that the blood transfusion has to be done. You should procure the blood only through recognized blood bank. But unfortunately, you are not such a situation here. Some of your team members are ready to donate blood. Some are against it, some are for it. So it's more of a technical issue here. So how would you react? What are the options? And that's the question. So probably, I think in a kind of life and death situation, you should use your common sense and what's best for the person on the spot that has to be done. That's how it has to go. Moving on to the next question, question 9. This is a question on work-life balance. So you are occupying a senior position in the government, and the role that you have to take is being a woman officer. And both husband and wife are working, and the children are young, and the maid takes care of the children. But the workload is high. You need to sometimes work through Sundays also. So basically, the case study is given to you, asking you issues about work-life balance. And there is a specific question here. Briefly describe at least 4 laws that has been enacted by the government with respect to provide a healthy, safe, and equitable working environment for women. So you need to be aware of the laws that has been enacted related to these kind of things. That's a very specific question. So if you do not have knowledge of that specific laws, then you might be finding it difficult to answer that sub-question. Basically, they're asking you to give suggestions how you could mitigate such kind of problems where there is seemingly lack of work-life balance. Of course, this is not a unsolvable problem. There are certain things which can be done at the individual level, certain things that can be done at the system level. I think it has to be a mix of both these things, and you need to base your suggestions on such kind of factors. Then you have the question 10. Question 10 is about so this is the issue related to politicization of civil services and also corruption in government. So you are given a role of an honest, sincere IAS officer. So it's about the state. You've taken a position in the state road transport corporation. You're the MD, and here the chairman is close to the chief minister, and the chairman is accused of being in collusion with a private party, and there is corruption involved. And there is another board member belonging to opposition political party who has some kind of evidence and gives it to you. And so the point is, the catch here is, it's not just about having the evidence. The question is, that person is also baiting you, saying that next term, it's our party, we would come into power, and this is a clinching evidence. I cannot do it anything on my own, and so if you are able to do it, it will be better. So that's a kind of catch here. So you could understand that there is, on one side, if you go ahead and expose the chairman, there is a possibility that you might be penalized, you might be transferred. At the same time, if the opposition party comes, there is a possibility that you might, all these problems that you're facing might go away. There is a risk of being painted as somebody who is close to one party over the other. So this is the catch here. So what are the options available to you? And what are the ethical issues in general? The second question, the second sub-question of this case study is comment upon the ethical issues that may arise due to politicization of bureaucracy. So you not need to just write about, of course, the first sub-question talks about the options available. So whenever you write the options, even though they have not exactly asked you to list out the consequences, when they say evaluate the options, you're supposed to give the options and the plus and minus of those options. Apart from that, you need to generally comment on the ethical issues related to politicization of bureaucracy. So you need to acknowledge that there is a politicization of bureaucracy and the dangers involved in that, and how we could avoid it, and what can be done, how we could reduce it or prevent it. Those kind of issues we have to talk about. Then we have the question 11. It talks about the role given here is your additional Director General of Central Public Works Department. Then there is a Chief Architect, and there is a new foreign educated lady architect working below the person, below the Chief Architect. She is a senior architect working below the Chief Architect. So this is a classic case of somebody feeling insecure and kind of harassment coming out as a result of that insecurity. So the junior is more talented and come up with brilliant suggestions. The chief architect holds the project, a particular project, as his pet project, and that person doesn't like the credit going to the junior, and that person has really started behaving negatively, kind of harassment is there. So what would you do? Because you are a witness to these things happening, and how would you deal with this? What are the ethical issues, first of all, involved in this case? Then what are the options available? Because you're responsible for completing the project in time. This kind of ego clashes or interpersonal issues cannot be allowed to delay or stall the project. And how would you react to this lady architect's situation? And what measures you could think of to prevent such kind of ego clashes or this kind of harassment from happening? So this question asks you with practical suggestions too. So there are 3 sub-questions dealing with all these 3. Then moving on to the next question, question 12. So in question 12, it's more about a personal issue. It's not directly connected with your official job or profile. It's about some students bullying your son. And there is a social media kind of campaign against your child and your family too. And how would you respond to such a kind of situation? So there is actually a case of bullying against your child. Our child is have got offended by this, have become more of lonely, and the performance has got affected, and you yourself are witness to this kind of bullying, but you did not take things in your hand. You just observed certain people are indulged in this kind of bullying. So what would you do it? Because there is a video circulating, painting you and your family and your child in negative light. So how do you do about it? So basically this, in today's world of social media, I think this can happen. What matters here is, of course, all the questions I've been asking, one of the sub-questions asks about the ethical issues involved. So you dissect it and talk about the issue, crux of the issue at hand. The second question is more important here, the sub-question. Discuss the pros and cons of using social media by you to put across the facts to counter the fake propaganda against your family. So basically, when there is a social media attack on you or your family, how do you go about it? Because some of your friends recommend that you need to present your side of the story. That's one alternative possibility. But there are always pros and cons when you put out a video from your side. Sometimes it's better to ignore it and deal with your well-being of your son in a better way by open communication and things like proper support. Otherwise, you could take it to the authorities and things like that. But there is another option where you could, in a very polite, pleasant manner, put the facts from your side. That is also a possibility. So basically, in the times of social media, in your personal space, in your social space, when there is a kind of social media attack, how would you respond to it and discuss the pros and cons? Moving on to that was the last question. So I think you got a rough idea about the kind of questions that has been asked. Overview, I think the paper is not very tough. It's manageable. Only thing on the spot, you should be able to come up with certain examples, appropriate examples. Otherwise, I think the questions are not out of the box. It's very much manageable. I hope you all did well, and all the best. Thank you.